It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi, and welcome to the Forum on Eagle Television. I'm Gary Shorman. Good to have you watching along as our forum is brought to you by Hayes Med. John Thissen is our guest, and John is the superintendent of USD 489. And you know what? It's an exciting time. We're almost halfway through the first part of the school year. Can you believe how fast time has gone?
It is amazing. It really is.
You know, football has a couple of neat wins going, but other than that, what's happening at the school district?
Well, we end up having our, one of the biggest items is our accreditation process is new for the state level, and one of the things that we're working on is to try to be prepared for that in our first year, have all the different pieces in the right place so that we're getting the right data, and we're looking at how do we improve our schools. And that's what the accreditation gives, the flexibility this time around for us to identify where we feel we need to most improve.
Well, that's one of the things at school, and your job falls into that along with a bunch of other things. And one of those you're working on right now, and we'll get right to the point, is a $78 million school bond issue that I know you have been working on. First, for those watching, we talked about this last time when you were on, but why is it so important that this gets voted through and passed?
Well, there's, for this community, I would end up saying that comparison, I know that there's individuals that have, they travel for sports from one school district to another. Many times it's because of sports that they end up travel and make that comparison. But there are plenty of the districts that are around us that have had success in bond issues of getting them passed and the improvements of their facilities. In our particular case, if you end up looking at our facilities, we have a total of $11 million in the last 40 years that's been put into our facilities for this size school district. We end up having in 92, there was about $5 million that was passed, and in 78, there was $6 million that was passed. So for us, that's really a couple ways to look at it. That's very good that only $11 million is needed over that time period, but we also are at a point where most of our buildings, I think we average about 63, 64 years old for our buildings, and they're at a point where they all need some attention. This particular plan is to tend to safety and security, the front entrances of the buildings, make sure that not just the middle school has tornado shelter, but all the buildings have tornado shelters. Trying to arrange for equity, because we have some buildings that children going to have classroom sizes that are so much smaller than other buildings, so we're trying to correct that as well.
So somebody comes and says, yeah, the other school districts, they have nice buildings, but do we really need it here? You mentioned a couple items there, but some point in time, when you look at the new high school, is now how old? 40 some years old.
It's 39, 40 years old, right.
And so is it really needed? Or is it just something we want better because city A, B, or C has a better thing?
Right. Well, I would say from the standpoint it is a need. It's a need because there are different pieces of this project. I ended up saying those, but if you look specifically at the middle school, for instance, there was some very nice changes a few years ago when we ended up having students from Kennedy go there, and the numbers went from 300 and 400 to 700. The add-ons and that was great. It worked well, but they weren't able to consider the cafeteria and kitchen. It was designed for 300, 400, and it is just woefully too small at this point. It needs to be enlarged, and that's one of the projects. The other is physical education. Right now we end up having over 100 students in that gymnasium at any given time because we have 700 kids there, not 300 to 400. And so another gym is needed for it. We also started 7th grade sports in just the last 3 to 4 years. And again, we're transporting kids around Hayes trying to find places to practice and also compete, because one gym just doesn't handle it for a building that is of that size, of having 700 children.
One of the things that probably resonates, and you have to think of this every day, is security.
Right.
And in today's world, having your kids safe at school, whether it be kids, grandkids, whatever, have a safe environment, that gets harder to do every day without, one, the right kind of entrances, the right kind of ways to protect. How does this address that?
Well, it's really sad because I know that people in Hayes love the idea of still having that small town feel. I mean, I know it's a little larger for a western Kansas town, but But still, the need is there to have that safety and that security. The front entrances would have that double entrance, those double walls that forces individuals that they'd have to go through the office to end up being checked in. So they can't just come into the building not being seen in that case. The other piece is we still end up having some of our buildings where we have a tornado drill. We don't have a good place at all. Some are actually in hallways, and we know that that's just not. We know it's not safe, but there's not a better location within the.
It's the best of the locations,
exactly.
And it's not the best.
That's right, and so to end up having all of the buildings have structures that are actually made for that purpose, the high wind shelter. It would be, that's what's needed at this time for that safety.
And again, if your kids or grandkids in school, you want a safe spot for them to be.
Exactly.
You don't want a tornado to hit, but we know in our part of the world those do happen.
Well, and the other piece, I think a lot of people are not recognizing that those are not tornado shelters just for children during the day. Most big storms don't come necessarily through the day anyway. They come in the evening. And the evening, those are facilities that would be open to the public to be tornado shelters in this community. At this point, I would say there's very few in this community. That would be nice to end up having that many more where people would have the choice to end up going to a safer location in case they know a tornado is heading this direction.
The interesting part is that the vote is just around the corner. It's a few weeks down the road. We'll talk about some of the dates and times because we want certainly people to be able to get out and place their vote. You've been making a tour. I don't know have you met everybody in Hayes, because you've been on a whirlwind tour. I think you talked to, I know, over 30 groups.
Yeah, there's.
What are the questions that are coming up, and what's the attitude in those groups?
One of the questions that comes up is great interest in the elementary, the new elementary school. Not the one that would replace Wilson Elementary, but the new one that would have Lincoln students and O'Laughlin students go to. Their great concern is the location of where it would be. Unfortunately, the money that's dedicated to possibly buy land for it is within the bond. So trying to make any negotiations or make any kind of arrangements for knowing where that would be, we can't do that yet. It's not going to happen. We do have land. It's by the high school. We can guarantee that there is a place, there is land, we can build a new elementary, but I also know that there's a lot of people that do not necessarily like that location. But even working on that's not going to happen until if the bond passes. If the bond passes, that'll be a priority to work on immediately.
One of the things I know that has come into play, and some questions that you're probably getting on this, is what's the timetable for all of this to happen? 78 million, you just can't spend that in the first week.
Exactly.
So I assume there's a long-term thought that's gone into this by the school board that's endorsed this. What is the timetable?
Well, the timetable is if it would pass November 7th, you end up having 6 months to 9 months for the detailed drawings for the architectural firm to work on. It is very likely that groundbreaking would happen in late 2018. So this time next year or October next year, very well there could be the groundbreaking. The new buildings, it's a lot easier and faster to build new buildings without working around children or other. So they'd probably be done first. So you could end up seeing within 12 months of that breaking ground to 18 months having new buildings done. But there's other pieces of the project that would not be completed, I'm sure, for the timeline we're being told is 2.5 to 3 years to have everything finished.
We're going to take a break here and come back and talk about just a couple of things. One, the cost, what it goes into that, what it means to a homeowner. We're going to talk about maybe just going into it as well as where, not only where the buildings will be, but what the dialogue is within the time frame for talking to the school board, where it goes next, and when you go vote and what you do that. So we'll have those things all coming up. Our guest, John Thissen, he's superintendent of USD 489, back after this from Hayes Med.
Hayes Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hayes Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hayes Med, helping people be healthy.
Are you frustrated with Wi-Fi dead zones in your home? It happens when you don't have Boost, the cutting-edge Wi-Fi solution from Eagle Communications. A Boost-certified Eagle technician maps your home, then installs a dual-band modem and router, plus discrete access points to deliver wall-to-wall Wi-Fi with no dead zones. Boost powers all your family's devices in all the places you love to live. Get Boost. Wi-Fi made simple. Only from Eagle Communications. Call today.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum program here on Eagle Television. If you have any thoughts or ideas about great programs, let me know. Gary.Shorman@eaglecom.net. You can also find us on Facebook under ECTV Forum. Our guest is John Thissen, and John is the superintendent of USD 489, working on a $78 million bond project. That's a lot of money. And I'm sure that's one of the questions that, what's it going to cost me as a homeowner to pay for this? Is it a big deal? Because sometimes some of us watching out there may not have kids in school anymore. But what does it mean to be able to continue to build our community?
Well, it's a big deal always when you increase taxes. And for property owners, it's going to be about $16.43 per $150,000 home. And that's over 30 years. It's a bond for people to understand. We didn't really choose or want to go with the 30-year. It was probably in the last meeting or two that happened. It happened largely. We also wanted it to be a little under $15 instead of $16.43. But those two things happened in the last meeting or two, because at that point it was really kind of forcing a decision to, and they had decided the primary need was at the elementaries, and the focus was the elementaries. But there was those items at the middle school and the high school that they still wanted very badly, and the fear was if they were not had at this particular time, the possibility of another bond passing 10 years, 15 years from now, just didn't know about that. So that was why the decision was to stretch it and do that at this point.
Well, you look at the history, and you mentioned that earlier. There's only been 11 millions over the last 40 years that have gone through. So as these things happen and they grow, the next steps are, one, the school boards voted unanimously to push this forward. A group's been in that's done the research to find the right thing. So the next thing is for voters to get out and vote. Timetable is October 17th, coming up here shortly, to be registered to vote.
For the registration, right.
And then October 23rd, you can vote by mail, and then November the 7th, which is right around the corner, believe it or not, is a date for you to get out and vote and vote in support of building the community.
Right.
Couple of things that we mentioned earlier is some of the facilities involved. O'Laughlin is one of those that is going to have really some major changes what's going to take place. What's happening with O'Laughlin? Then we'll talk a little bit about some of the others as well.
Sure. A lot of people need to understand that it's not a matter that the buildings are intended to be the same size, going from 4 elementaries to 3, and having about a little over 500 students in each one of those buildings, creating equity, trying to create equity across the board, and having those class sizes the same, about 850 square feet. In doing that, O'Laughlin and Lincoln can't all go into one new building. Some of those staff and some of those students are going to have to go to Wilson and also Roosevelt as well. And the complication, or the complication with O'Laughlin is when they end up leaving, part of the decision was based upon a study that was done, requested by TMP as a traffic study by the state around that area. Hall Street gets so congested at that early morning and into the day.
Been there.
Yeah,
been there a few times.
It's a mess. And trying to fix that, even that old plan over a year ago, the $94 million one, had a plan where there was a road that was going to go around O'Laughlin. But even with that included, the study they did said that the problem with it is most people aren't going to end up, they're going to come right back to Hall Street even if they go around it. So it was not really a fix, it was redirecting, and most of the suggestions they had was going to help, but it really wasn't a solution. The solution was really maybe moving the children an elementary school from there, We have great need of moving, having better facilities for our early childhood program as well. They're at the old Washington building at this time. Having them come to O'Laughlin would be excellent. So we could end up having those children move from O'Laughlin, renovate that building, allow the early childhood program have 2 different wings of that. We could even have Munger come over, so we don't have to use that school at Munger anymore. That school could then go right back to the church. That's how the contract ends up being with it. And all of the early childhood would be there. West Side could as well go to that building, have the short wing of it. It could be designed so that it's really quite separated. And even the basement of Rockwell has the virtual program, which is our adult learning program, and they could end up having 1 or 2 classrooms in that building too. So with all having different entrances, I mean, it can be designed so that it really tends to 3 different programs in that facility. It also would answer the traffic, because the traffic of those particular programs is going to be so different than almost 400 elementary children.
And so as a result, you're going to be expanding a couple of the other schools and building one more. And so the expansions quickly will take place at which schools? Roosevelt and Wilson, correct?
Well, Wilson was a very difficult one, because there was the talk of actually having it renovated from all through that. Problem is, at the close again to the end, it was $5.9 million is what the value of that building is. And they were talking about putting $15.6 million of renovation and add-on to it. And the difficulty with it was 73% of what new would be. They finally decided it's just build another building in the backyard of it. When it's done, go ahead and demolish the old Wilson and use that area for the parking lot and for the playground area.
You know, there's a lot of moving parts on this. If somebody wants to find out more, is one, I know you'll take a call from anybody. You'll go and talk about it because you know the need going forward. This is not a 1 or 2 year fix either. This is a long-term fix. Have you projected out how far this is going to help with the program?
Really feel that it's a 30, 40 year plan. Even the 94 million one before that, more money, and yet really didn't have that futuristic plan with it. This one is a futuristic plan. It takes care of the need for another bond election is not foreseeable in those 30 or 40 years. And I know individuals are saying, what about Rockwell? Nothing's being done with it. Rockwell can be tended to by capital outlay money in the future whenever, because there's no plan for any work on that particular site with this bond election.
Well, I know people have to decide to vote yes or no, but more importantly, to get out and vote.
Just vote.
And November 7th is right around the corner. The website to go to find out some specifics, look at some of the pictures, look at some of the theory behind what you're talking about is what?
USD489.com. Just need to go to that site and
that's right on the front page. When you land there, you do that, you find out more,
right.
You can click on questions. And I'm sure between now and then and the election, if there's somebody that has some questions, you'll take that call as well.
Please call. That would be great.
Well, I appreciate all the work that not only you, but the school board has gone to put together a comprehensive plan. When you talk about 30, 40 years, some of us may not be around to do that, but to build a future for our kids certainly makes a big, big difference.
Well, and truly do believe that it's also great to end up saying that there's the plan of, even on October 17th, we're going to end up having our construction manager at risk is coming in to invite all the contractors in this area to explain what the needs are and try to end up having Hayes be the workforce. So it's nice. That'll be at 4 o'clock at Thirsties. That's already being planned at this time, and I'm excited to end up seeing the large, I think it'll be a large number that's going to show up for that.
And that's coming up just in a few days here on the 17th of October.
That's
Very
right.
good. Well, if you haven't registered, get out and register. 17th happens to be the date, the last day you can register.
Right.
23rd, you can vote by mail.
Yes.
And then November 7th is when you go to the ballot box and actually vote in person if you want to do that. John, thanks for being with us again, and thanks for your hard work for you and the team up there pushing our future forward at USD 489 and frankly our community. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
John Thissen has been our guest. He's a superintendent at USD 489. Our program is brought to you by Hayes Med and by Eagle Communication, our community connected.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications. Our community connected.